going to open the phones up for Dr. Doug Rokke. The best way for you to send your questions is twitter.com/The Real Alex Jones. That's our Twitter account. There's a lot of other great Alex Jones fan sites, but that's our official Twitter account. Also, Real Alex Jones, not The Real Alex Jones. So twitter.com/Real Alex Jones. Going back to Dr. Doug Rokke, one of the top experts in the world on DU, even according to the Pentagon, who he worked for. Dr. Rokke, let's talk about the real health effects and the studies and what they've known DU does and how it's a toxic byproduct of spent fuel rods from nuclear reactors. But more importantly, I want to ask you now about the mindset of the elite. I mean, they had DU in the 40s and 50s, and I saw papers where they talked about it as a weapon, and they said we can't use it because it kills our own personnel and people that move into the areas. What changed in the mindset where they wouldn't use it in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and now it's just, we're going to use it at local shooting ranges for the military. We're going to use it in Hawaii. We're going to use it in Puerto Rico. We're going to tell the troops it's okay and watch them die. I mean, this is psychopathic murder.
Yes, it is. It's just the fact that they made the decision that human life had no value, that animals had no value, that food has no value, and they just made a conscious decision, and I've been fighting this since I did all the research for them, the Nevada test site, and wrote the directives. They just don't care. But as you said, the health and environmental effects of all this have always been known. I mean, my own medical care for my depleted uranium exposures, because of my assigned duties, one of the things I forced it with was the original 1973 report on the use of uranium emissions by Israelis against the Egyptians in the Sinai. And all of that stuff was known then. It was documented there in the official reports. And again, these are not classified. But they just totally there, and they totally ignore it. Prior to Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom, Colonel J. Edgar Wakayama, who's the director of the U.S. Department of Defense Operational Test and Evaluation Command, gave a briefing to all the senior generals and everybody in the Pentagon upon depleted uranium, how it works, what it is, the fact that the munitions, as you said, go all the way down to the M16 rifle, 50 cal, everything all the way up. But in this briefing, he stated very specifically, I'm going to quote very, very specifically, depleted uranium munitions, when used, okay, they emit alpha, beta, and gamma particle and X-rays. The alpha particle taken inside the body in large doses is hazardous, producing cell damage and cancer. Quote, lung cancer is well documented. We continue on. Beta particle is hazardous to the skin and the lens of the eye. Now, personally, I've learned that because of all my radiation cataracts and the other problems with the eyes, and everybody else is reporting it. It continues on very, 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 very direct, and it says, DU is chemically toxic. We look at all this stuff. We have total confirmation. Quote, urine samples containing uranium are mutagenic as determined by the Ames test. The cultured human stem bone cell line with DU also transforms the cells that become carcinogenic. That's the reason why we're seeing so incredible levels of leukemia in all these young kids coming back from Desert Storm. But we're also seeing leukemia in the children, the offspring of those who were exposed during Desert Storm.
Because just like fluoride, the particle's so small, Doctor, correct me if I'm wrong, it precipitates into the bone. That's correct.
There is no respiratory skin protection that'll work. Even though when we did all this work for the military, the Department of Energy gave us their best respirators, the Army gave us their best respirators, it went through it like an open barn door. It absolutely does it. One of the big problems, quote from the Wakayama briefing, I'm going to read this because it's astonishing. They know and they disregard it. The three major routes of human exposure to DU are wounding by shrapnel, inhalation, lungs and thoracic lymph nodes, ingestions, most among children playing and eating contaminated soil and contaminated drinking water and food in the community, end quote. That is what we're seeing throughout Iraq.
And that's from what year?
Pardon me?
What year was that report?
This is a briefing to the senior Pentagon leadership in 2002 before the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom.
And again, I'm going from memory, interviewing you and others and reading mainstream news, but I saw reports in the 50s it was a secret weapon they were only going to use if the Russians flooded into Eastern Europe, but they said we still don't advise because it ruins the area for billions of years. I mean, they know this. It's just so incredible, and they know I mean, I see the numbers of troops coming back and dropping dead and getting cancer and getting leukemia and other blood cancers, and they know it's killing them. I mean, we ought to make all these generals go into the proving grounds and snort a line of DU if it's so good.
When I specifically talk to the generals in Washington, D.C., as I've done in the last few weeks, and ask them very specifically for help in getting medical care, environmental remediation, they just say, go to your congressman and senator, we're not going to help you.
And I noticed those troops have told me, and I've seen it in the news, the generals won't stay in these bombed-out buildings like they tell the troops to. And notice none of these generals want to stay in Iraq very long. Dr. Rokke, long segment coming up. Roll through the documents for people, because all you folks out there that claim you love the troops so much and stick American flags on your car,